a political scandal, that the heart of the scandal are real people. I will put together all documents missing from the application, and I hope that no bureaucratic tricks will prevent me from seeing my loved ones. I ask the UK and you personally to reconsider the decision to refuse my visa. They are scared that I will find out something more, that Yulia will tell me something. Yes, they try to manipulate me, not the Kremlin, but MI5. I will fight till the end. If I fail here, I will go to the UN.
Some British media outlets have suggested the application was blocked because the government feared she was being coached by the Kremlin. Others claim the Russian government is using Viktoria Skripal as a pawn in a political game. Well, Viktoria herself says she wasn't surprised at having her visa application rejected. She's questioned whether the British authorities have something to hide by preventing a relative from visiting. In an exclusive interview to the Ruptly video agency, Viktoria claims that in a phone conversation, her cousin Yulia was being prompted.
At first, I was happy that Yulia called, but it was clear that she wasn't speaking her own words. She was being prompted. You can't hear it in the recording, but at the start, she was told, yes, you can talk, which meant that she was being guided. She had the number dialed for her, because she obviously couldn't remember all 9 figures of my number.
Russia, in turn, called for an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council over the Skripal case, which the Russian ambassador said had become a theatre of absurdity, likening it to a fictional novel.
How dare you! Open his head!
This paper has just been picked up. What's in it? Said the Queen. I haven't opened it yet, said the White Rabbit. But it seems to be a letter written by the prisoner to somebody. Are they in the prisoner's handwriting as another of the jurymen? No, they are not, said the White Rabbit. Please, Your Majesty, said the knave. I didn't write it, and they can't prove I did. There is no name signed at the end. If you didn't sign it, said the king, that only makes the matter worse. You must have meant some mischief. Let the jury consider the verdict, the king said, for about the 20th time that day. No, no, said the Queen. Sentence first, verdict afterwards.
That remind you of anything?
There's another very good quote from Alice in Wonderland that is, sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. So I think that's the quote that suits my Russian colleague best.
Every fairy tale needs a good old-fashioned villain.
Allowing Russian scientists into an investigation when they are the most likely perpetrators of the crime in Salisbury would be like Scotland Yard inviting in Professor Moriarty.
Rather like the beginning of Crime and Punishment. We're all confident about the identity of the culprit, and the only question is whether he will first confess or be caught.
Boris Johnson mentioned Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, saying that the novel's main intrigue was whether the culprit would confess before getting caught. The novel, by the way, is not about that at all. It's not a detective story. It's serious work of philosophical literature. I would advise Boris Johnson to read other works of Dostoevsky, or at least learn the titles.
In other headlines, dozens of protesters staged a massive anti-occupation rally.
We're now maybe 100 meters
meters only far away from the fence. You can see the crowds, you can see the protesters. More than 100,000 Palestinians have been here. Tensions are running high right now. The Israeli army started to shoot randomly. More Palestinians are getting injured while the ambulances are here to take all the injuries that were now injured from the Israeli army by live bullets, live ammunition and tear gas canisters. This is one of the injuries that was injured just right now from the rubber bullets and the tear gas. The Red Cross ambulance and all the medics are trying to save all the injuries. As you see, the Palestinian protesters are running away from the tear gas canisters that were thrown just right now on the protesters. So these are unexploded tear gas canisters that are being targeted and shooted on the Palestinian protesters. Thousands of hundreds of Palestinians have been here, and we saw Palestinian protesters burning US flags and Israeli flags and also saying slogans against the Israelis and the Americans.
A wave of rallies began at the end of March, with organisers claiming they'll last for several weeks. And during the past 7 days, more than 20 Palestinians have been killed, many more wounded during what's being called the Great March of Return. Now, several journalists have also been injured in the clashes. One of them later died. Yasser Murtaga worked for a local TV production company. Gaza health officials said he was shot while filming close to the border and died later in hospital. In this photo, you can see he was wearing a jacket marked press. The Israeli military said it only fired at those it called instigators of the violence. A spokesperson for the IDF posted on Twitter saying rioters attempted to cross the security fence and set off explosive devices in an attempted terrorist attack. Now, 14 of the 15 members of the UN Security Council did back a call for an independent investigation into all the deaths caused by Israel's use of live ammunition during the protests. It was blocked by one nation, the United States. We discussed the issue with a human rights activist from Palestine and an expert from Israel.
No record that mentioned that there was fire from the Palestinian side. There was few who could cross the fences to hang the Palestinian flag on the fences only. And they were only throwing stones or burning tire wheels on the borders. If the Israelis are saying that, why not accepting with the Americans the inquiry commission to come to Gaza to investigate of the killing of the 29 people and the injuries happened here?
Some of them were actually Hamas fighters and Hamas terrorists. And most of those who were killed last week were among them, was people who are paid by Hamas and actually work for Hamas as terrorists. So what do they want? To organize terror attacks against Israel and what? And that Israel should sit doing nothing against them?
And one of the largest local broadcasting corporations in the US is facing a backlash.